Hello and welcome back to Running on Pixie Dust. I am your host, Annika Hudak. Please give me a follow on Instagram and all other social platforms at Annika Hudak, or my favorite Instagram profile that I actually use, Annika's Paintbrush. I just use the one Instagram mainly. Like, I still go on the other one, but I don't know. It was back when the Disney Instagram thing was happening, and that was a whole separate thing, and then that's just the one I use now. So, little background on that. But welcome to the continued season 2 of Running on Pixie Dust. Thank you so much for being here, listening, and/or watching on YouTube. If you didn't know, I have this available on YouTube, Spotify, and a bunch of other podcast platforms. I started this podcast to align with my Dopey Challenge 2023 training, and then just decided to do Dopey again and then continue the podcast, of course. So be sure to check out episode 0 for my full background and story if you are new here. But if you're not new here, then you know that I'm just so excited to share all the things that I've learned along the way and continue to learn and just talk things out. And I love just chit-chatting about running and life. So that's what we're here to do. Disclaimer, I'm not a coach and I'm not affiliated with anyone or anything, and I'm just sharing my personal experiences and opinions for funsies. Welcome to episode 26. 26 is a good number. You want to know why? 26 miles. Okay, 26.2 miles, but it's the magic marathon number. Let's just say that. So we're back for another episode. It's been a while. I took a nice little break because I had a bunch of trips happening. I have an injury going on. We've got so many things, but I have very exciting news in this week's episode. So it really called for a whole episode and for me to get my butt out here and record. So here we are. If you are not new here, you know that I start with my highs and lows and then I dive into the meat of the episode. So let's go ahead and dive into my highs. This goes for highs basically since the last episode. So it spans over a few weeks. But we had Halloween. Halloween is my favorite time, my favorite holiday. I was going to say season, but it's really like spooky season. I guess Halloween could be a season, but yeah, spooky season. I'm a spooky season kind of gal. I frequented Halloween Horror Nights, and I did go to Disneyland. So I was at Disneyland on Halloween day and night, and I went to Oogie Boogie Bash. So that was really awesome. I don't know the last time that I visited Disneyland during the Halloween time, and I absolutely love it because, again, spooky season is my favorite time of year. And they have the giant Mickey pumpkin on Main Street. And the parks are just such close proximity. If you didn't already know, I was born and raised in California. Disneyland was like my Disney park that I grew up going to. And I was an annual pass holder in college. I lived 10 minutes away from the park. So I think we checked on my pass, and I think in like the first few months of me having it, I like went 50 times or something ridiculous because we were there all the time. And I'm a huge Disneyland stan. And not to mention, I also went to the very, very, very first Oogie Boogie Bash party, First Fright, the very first one, back in 2019, and it was really exciting to be able to go back again and enjoy that party on actual Halloween night. So that was a great trip. It was a very long one. I always end up turning my West Coast trips into these like extravaganzas, going to like multiple locations. I did that earlier in September when I went to Alani and then Oregon and then Vegas on one trip. That was a wild time. And then I kind of did a similar thing here where I was going to California anyway for my good friend Jacqueline. She had her wedding and I was a bridesmaid, so I was so happy to celebrate her. But since I was going to California anyway, I was like, well, Disneyland's like right there, kinda, sorta. So that was great. It was a great trip. Like it was definitely a high. I will say my knees struggled because while I do have my quote unquote like injury on technically just my left knee, my right knee does like have issues as well, just because it's been overall like surrounding muscles and weak a weak support system for my knees, let's say, for both of them. And it wasn't just my left knee having issues, but I will say I'm pretty sure it's my left kneecap that is having the maltracking and is tracking a little bit outwards. And my hip alignment has been a little bit off, so that's why things might have escalated more on my left knee. It's just, I don't know. It's genetics. It was my shoes causing me to supinate, leaning more outwards on my feet because I naturally just do that since I have pretty high arches. But I don't know. It's just weird because you would think, why is it just happening on one side? Like there must be something wrong, but I don't know. It's a whole thing. I dive into the details of my knee injury, I think a couple episodes back, and I talk you through all of the medical terms and everything the doctor said and everything that I had learned about my knees. So if you are interested in hearing more about that, please go check out that past episode. But to sum it up, I have been off of my legs. So I was very, very nervous about still doing this Disneyland trip because what does that mean? Lots of walking. And I wasn't going to hold it against myself if I was like wanting to get an ECV or something. Like I was like, if I need to get off of my feet and off of my knees, then I will do it. And I had my knee brace, and my knee brace specifically for my left knee, my $148 freaking knee brace, had this little piece on the inside that essentially artificially shoves my kneecap over where it's supposed to be. It's just as comfortable as that sounds. And that helps like support me when I am having to do a lot of walking. And the intention was also to wear it on my runs when I could start running again, and potentially for the entire race weekend when it comes to dopey. So we'll see. During the trip, I took it very, very slow. We did not do any rope dropping. We did not do any shutting the park down. The only time that we stayed late, and that's like, I'm saying after like 6 p.m. Like that's late now for me. And not to mention the time change, like East Coast time to West Coast time. But the only time we stayed late was the Oogie Boogie Bash event, which that went until midnight, and I think we still left like early. We still left like 11:30 because we did everything, and it was magnificent. My friend and I went as Miguel and Ernesto de la Cruz from Coco, so that was really fun because they do have the Coco themed area in the California Adventure Park, which is where Oogie Boogie Bash is held, and they did have Ernesto de la Cruz as a star villain on one of the treat trails, which was fantastic. He actually sang his song Remember Me, which was great. Like I didn't know he actually sang a full song while he's just hanging out on the treat trail, like a full performance. Incredible work. I got so many snackies. They give out like sun chips, apple slices, Rice Krispie treats. Like you don't see that at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party here at Disney World, okay? Yeah. So I love Oogie Boogie Bash, and I love the California Adventure Park. Monsters After Dark, where they turn Guardians of the Galaxy. Is it Mission Breakout? And they turn into Monsters After Dark, where like the monsters are released and they like turn the lights off, and they have a different music track overlay and different scenes played out. And so it's one of my faves. I love when they do that. I'm so glad I could like go back to do that. And on Halloween Day, I didn't even know they did this. They turn it into Monsters After Dark for the entire day, I'm pretty sure. So that was cool. So you could just go and ride it whenever. You didn't have to be at Oogie Boogie Bash for that, even though I was already going that night. So I rode it again, which was great. I did also take advantage of Genie Plus when I was there because the Haunted Mansion holiday overlay with Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm so obsessed. They had Jack Skellington, Oogie Boogie. They had Sally. They had Zero. They had all the little creepy crawly friends, and the overlay is just so amazingly well done and makes me so happy. So I did that every day that I was there. Totally worth it. And Genie Plus definitely came in handy for that because I was not about to wait like 2.5 hours, especially when my knee is having issues. And yeah, so I mean, I could have done an ECV, I don't know, but I tried it. Like, walking is also good. It's like a double-edged sword because I still want to get in exercise, I still want to get in steps, and it's like still good to move the muscles around and everything, but like you don't want to overdo it because then you don't want to make things worse. So it's just finding that happy medium. I took many sitting breaks. I took many sitting breaks. Like, I found many different locations to just sit, charge my phone, and or sit in the AC, relax, and just take it as easy as I could. Like, I was definitely feeling fatigued, but it didn't feel like I overdid it necessarily because I wasn't actually doing like any extra exercise. I was only doing the parks. So that was good. Long story short, had a great time at Disneyland, and I love that place. I have been going to physical therapy, which is a high, but it's also a low because my stupid insurance gave me the wrong in-network list. They gave me the network for another network that is not my network, and they said, here, all of these are in your network, go to them. And I went to them, and they've been charging me out of pocket this whole time, and I didn't find out until like about after a few sessions in, because I thought that the copay was what it was, and it's a whole thing. But no, it's out of network, and I tried calling my insurance again, and that's just a whole insurance thing, and I've been paying an arm and a leg for this freaking physical therapy, which sucks because it was the only place that could get me in that I'd called, and it's a long story. I think I've already touched upon this too in my past episode, but I really like the therapist that I've been working with, and she definitely takes extra time with me. It's very close to my home. It's very convenient, and I do feel like I am at least getting my money's worth. I mean, it's a lot of freaking money, but she knows that like I'm paying cash, like I'm a cash patient, so that she's like taking different measures, and she knows that like I don't have a normal cycle, like a number of weeks or anything, like a halfway point. Like, she just let me know that if I like feel good about what they're doing and where I'm at with running and where I'm at with my pain and everything, that she'll just do like a discharge final session essentially, and sign me out and I'm good kind of thing. So yeah, that might not have made a whole lot of sense, but in my mind it makes sense. But just know, I'm still doing physical therapy, not as often. I'm going like once a week, and then not during this holiday week. So we've got 2 weeks for that. But I did, however, in my session before my last session, so this was like after I gotten back from my trips and I finally went back in, after 54 days of not running. 54 days! 54 days! But who's counting? 54 days of not running. My physical therapist finally gave me the okay to go on run! Which is so exciting. I could literally cry, and I definitely have cried. But she let me know that like it's okay to like give a test run and then work with my coach to determine how to ease me back into it, determining the miles and the times and all of that. But she like thought I was ready, and so that was amazing news. I started my test run. It was so scary and stressful going back into it because it's just like, what if it goes terribly, or what if I forgot how to run, and what if all of these things. So it's definitely stressful getting back into it. But I have done 6 runs now. All of them have been like 30 minutes. Very, very easy pace. Not pushing myself in any way. Just trying to get back out there. And yeah, I'll talk more about that later on in this episode. But we have gotten back into it. Dopey's not off the table, and we're doing things. So that's a major high. Next time my friends are visiting for Thanksgiving week, we've got some fun park plans, and I'm so excited they're here visiting me. They're from Kansas City, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my KC shirt. I also posted on my Instagram story because Sir Travis Kelce is all of our boyfriends now, I think, but very exciting stuff. She brought me a lot of goodies from Kansas City and some Chiefs and Travis merch. So that's really fun. We've got fun activities while they're here. My final high is I signed up for the Disney Cast Member 5K, which is really exciting because that's now my next race, and that's like what I'm working towards. I'm actually going to try for 5K this week and see how that goes, and then slowly I'm increasing my mileage. So I'm hopeful that 5K will go well for me. It's not for another couple of weeks, so I'm feeling confident about it, and I have like a race to look forward to that's before Dopey. So there's that. Moving on to my lows. All of the time off of running. Wow, that really, really made me sink back into a deep depression. That was not good. Running is absolutely like my therapy, and it makes me so happy. It gives me so much dopamine and serotonin and makes me feel so good. And like runner's high is absolutely a thing. But having to take all that time off, not by choice, is rough. Had quite a few very dark days, and not being able to run it out sucked. I'm trying not to cry because I just hate crying, but I'm like the biggest crybaby of all time. Like I will cry at any given moment. I have such overactive tear ducts that once that first tear drops, it's game over. We can't stop until the next business day. You know what I mean? So we're not gonna go there, but I'm also like any second away from my period, and you know how it is. I completely overshare on this podcast because it also affects my running routine. So you will have to know it if I have to endure it. There you go. Anyways, it was really hard to take all of that running time off, and especially seeing like all of my like close friends that are also training, and like we train together, and just seeing them succeed. I'm completely happy for them and so proud of them, and it just sucks looking at the situation like that's where I'm supposed to be and that's where I intended to be, and like I could have been there with them at their same level, but that's just not how the cookie crumbled. So it is really sad, and it's taken a while for me to kind of come to peace with it. And going into Dopey weekend, I still am very hopeful, and I still believe like I can do it. Like I'm very determined to complete the challenges. It's just so sucky that like it won't be where I want it to be. Like this was supposed to be my revenge Dopey, and I was supposed to feel so great and amazing and have all of this great training behind me, but it's just not there. So that's a really, really big low for me. And the fact that something like that is such a time suck for your year, it's hard to imagine going through that over and over again. Even though like I love running and like I love having a training schedule and having something to work for, it's just that's a really, really big commitment. So yeah, it's been very, very hard. We're running out of training time. It's almost end of November, which don't remind me. It's very, very stressful. Like I'm still excited, but like stressed, very stressed. Yeah. And as for my final low, which it's not even a low for me, but it definitely impacted me, is my dear, dear friend. My dear friend, who she's shared this information on her public Instagram account and kept people in the loop. So she's okay with me sharing this. But my close friend Amanda suffered from a stroke while I was in California, and that was very, very hard to go through as someone sitting on the outside who is helpless. The crazy thing was, she was the one who had reached out to me mid-stroke, being like, buddy, I have stroke. Huh? What? Going into surgery, buddy. Stroke. What? Huh? And so that was an interesting conversation that we had while she was mid-stroke, on her way into surgery. And thankfully, she had incredible friends with her at the time that it happened. She was away from home with some friends, and they were on a boat off of Cocoa Beach. They were coming back into dock, and she is having a stroke. She can't speak. One of our close friends is a nurse, and so thankfully, like, she knew the signs immediately and was able to ask Amanda questions and determine that that's in fact what was happening. And it got to the point where Amanda like couldn't speak anything. So thankfully they rushed her immediately to the hospital, which was like right across the street from where they were. Thank goodness. And they determined that, yep, you're having a stroke, and airlifted her to a center in Melbourne, which is kind of near the coast of the east coast of Florida, if you're unaware. I was unaware. I had no idea where Melbourne was. So she stayed in ICU there for a while, which was very scary. But after being rushed into emergency surgery and them relieving the blood clot in her brain, which had caused the stroke, she's good, and she made it out okay. Like, she lived to tell the tale. She's talking clearly. She can walk. Like, she's all there, and things are okay. That was such a stressful time. Like, that's so hard. When something so sudden happens like that to someone that you care about, it's just like, it's so insanely scary, especially since I was so far away. Like, I couldn't be there with her. Like, I didn't know what had happened, and luckily, like, I was able to get in the loop with and her friends and her family and everything. But that was just intense. Had our friends waited any longer to rush her to the hospital, or had she not been with anyone and didn't know that she was having a stroke, like, things could have ended very differently. So yeah, I'm going to say that's a major low. She's doing great now. She's out of the hospital, and she is, again, talking, walking, back to living life as well as you can after something like that. And so things are good now, and that's what matters. But yes, if you did follow my stories or her stories, I tag her in my stories a lot and on my account, if you are interested in more information. But yeah, if you're looking for any ways to support her or hear it from like her words, she has everything posted on her page, Amanda in Orlando, on Instagram. So yes, we are very happy she is back with us and able to communicate. And yes. Okay, moving on to the meat of this episode, knee update. Woo! I am feeling much better. Like, my knees are, and I say knees plural because it honestly has been a weird situation with both of them. Like, I would almost describe it as like the pain will sometimes just jump from the left one to the right. It just kind of jumps on over there. And I have pains in different spots, and it's just like a weird thing. So I'm just going to use knees as plural because there's just kind of been some ongoing things with both of them. Because why just one when you can have two? Okay, so yes, knees are feeling much better. Not amazing, and obviously not healed, but I've been equating it to, you know how you get like really, really sick and like you're super congested, like you're super like sinus infection-y or cold, like head cold, and you feel so congested you can't breathe out of your nose for like days and days and days. And then you start to think back to like when you were so ungrateful about being able to breathe through your nose that you're just like, oh, remember when I could breathe normally? Well, that's like how it's been feeling with my knees. Like, wow, remember when I could like bend my knees like a normal person and like walk downstairs and like walk? So that has been very, very tough because I've never had knee issues ever. And so this has been just such a downer. Like any injury obviously is going to be a downer. But yeah. So that's what I've been equating it to. I'm just like, I was so ungrateful to have good working knees. But I was wearing my brace on my left knee, especially if I was going to do any lots of walking. But it definitely, like my knee and my leg got very tired of wearing it if I wore it for like an entire day. So that was just interesting. It's been a lot of trial and error things happening. But I will say, on my last physical therapy appointment, my physical therapist tried a taping setup. I don't even know what, like a stability taping using the equivalent of KT tape. She uses OK tape. So I'm assuming it's just another brand, but that's the brand that she really likes. And so she recommended it, and she taped up both my knees. And she did such a good job. Oh my God, she was so precise. Because with something like KT tape, you have to be very particular about stretch versus no stretch versus like the percentage of the amount of stretch. Your anchor points, they need to be very intentional and thoughtful, or else it's not gonna help you. It could hurt you, actually. I mean, I don't know if it could like really, really hurt you per se, but I will say when I first got my knee brace and like had gone to the doctor and got my like diagnosis, essentially, I tried taping both of my knees in different ways, because it was recommended to me that I try taping my left knee to shove over the kneecap, essentially what the brace was doing, but also do it with tape to just double whammy it, more the merrier. And then on my right knee, I tried doing like a stability taping that I just kind of found off the internet with my own KT tape. And after doing some walking with the tapes and the brace, the tapes like were really irritating me. Like I was feeling like weird sensations of tiredness and aches and not necessarily pain, but I don't know how else to describe it, in like weird spots. And so I don't think I taped right, to be honest. Like I didn't know that you could tape that wrong, but now that I know how the tape should feel, I'm like, oh yeah, I was taping absolutely wrong. So yeah, the way, I gotta look it up, because technically, since I would categorize my knees having like runner's knee, like patellofemoral syndrome off the top of my head. You want to tape like for stability for your kneecaps. So she did that for both my knees. She did like the anchor points right on my patella and used 3 strips, 2 full strips to go up around my kneecap, and then cut 1 strip in half to stabilize the bottom horizontally. And it's definitely Googleable how to tape for like the patellofemoral syndrome, but I better be saying that right, because that'll be really embarrassing if I'm not even saying it right, because I don't have it listed out in front of my face right now. But she did like the perfect, she was like, okay, I'm going to pull it. This is 100% stretch, and then lowered it 75, 50, 25 is where we want. And then she like did it so perfectly, and I was just mind blown. And she took her sweet time, and like one piece of tape was like not good enough, and it had like one single hair on it. And she was like, no, we're going to start over with a new one. And did an amazing job. And she told me to give that a try for my run. And this wasn't my first run back at this point. This was probably, I had done 4 runs. So now I have done 2 runs with this knee tape and not wearing my brace to feel it out, to see how that feels. So I tried the run using the tape, and what? Witchcraft, woman! Like, that guy felt really good. Like, I was really scared that leaving the tape on for like more than a few hours, more than a day, more than a couple of days was going to give me that weird achy feeling that like I had when I taped up my knees wrong, but it didn't. And so I felt so supported. I went on the run. I felt good. I have been just in awe. I'm like, that's crazy. What you said to do works. Like, who would have thought? Not me. Like, I'm just really happy that it is working for me. So I'm like, I've left the tape on for like days, and I've showered and everything, and the tape has stayed on. So I'm just gonna leave it on until it starts peeling off, and I have to take it off. And I'm gonna try taping it how she did, so precise. And like, I saw her how she was like stretching it, and I like made a lot of mental notes on like how I need to do that when I tape myself. So I think we're going down the right track here, and I'm really, really excited because who would have thought? Anyway, on the topic of physical therapy, I have very noticeably stronger hips. Like, it is noticeable, and that also makes me very happy and makes the pain of paying an arm and a leg and a kidney for these appointments a little bit less painful. But I will say we've definitely focused on like hip flexor strength, on calf, quad, glute strength, which is like, all right, Annika, list all the muscles in your leg, why don't you? But like, yeah, you got to strengthen literally everybody. Everybody's got to be on board. Everyone's got to know the script, know your lines, stick to the plan, like go to your places, be ready for action, baby. So that's absolutely been working, and now it's just making sure I don't let off, because you can't just stop if you're starting to feel better. Like, don't do that. We got to keep strengthening things and keep moving forward. So keep moving forward and opening up new doors. Okay, Walt Disney. But also focusing on like hamstring stretching and calf stretching, and that also really helps because I have a little bit of plantar fasciitis that I've just like dealt with forever, and never a really huge issues for me. I just get tightness in my arches and in the backs of my calves and like my Achilles areas. So it is all just working together, making sure I do all of my exercises frequently and all of that. So it's been very good. And let's talk about running again. It makes me so happy, but like, it's also been very hard, which I'll talk about more in another section. But with coming back into my runs, I'm starting very, very slow. I'm working with my coach on easing back into it. Like I mentioned before, I'm starting with 30-minute easy pace runs. Like, we're not racing anybody. We are just getting out there and picking it up to a jog. So I started my very first test run. I started like 30-30 intervals. I was like, let me just see if I can even run for 30 seconds and if that first step like will even let me move forward. So I was very, very scared. That first few minutes of running was a shock to the system for sure. Like, that, literally those first couple of steps picking it up to a run. And this is after like doing a full warm up. Like, I did foam rolling, I did activations for like glutes and hips and warm ups and like lunges and a 10-minute warm up walk leading into this because we cannot go into it cold. And literally the first step picking it up to a run was like, my knee was like, just like that. It spoke to me. It said exactly that. And I was a little concerned, but then I took a couple more steps and we kind of warmed up into it. We got there. Okay. Yeah. And so it was a bit scary, and I was like, oh no, am I not going to be able to run it all? But we did it again, warming up. And once I was actually running, I felt pretty okay. So continued. The pain was definitely not at 0, but it was probably like a 2-ish, which was like, okay, all right. My PT had said I could start running when the pain got down to 2 or 1. So, because it kind of been in that 3 and 4 range leading up to it. But that was a very exciting thing. And I worked my way up. Like, I literally switched the intervals once I felt good. I did like literally 2 or 3, maybe like 4 on the first run of rounds of the 30-30 intervals. And then I upped it to 60 seconds, 30 seconds recover. And then I went up to 90. And I think for the last like 10-ish minutes of the run, I upped it to like what I had been working on already, a 3-minute, 1-minute interval situation. So I felt pretty good about that. And then kind of started slow with the next run. I got to do a little group run with some of my runner girlies, which was really fun because they were all so happy to have me back running. And we were celebrating. And I told them, I was like, we got to go turtle pace. Turtle pace. And that was good. And then I joined them for like a couple miles for my 30 minutes. And then they did the rest of their run. So that was good. I've had 6 runs back so far, and they keep feeling pretty good. I'm increasing to a 5K this week, and we're slowly working my way back up there. I think I'm going to try for 45 to 50 minutes also this weekend, so we're going to see how it goes. I am very stressed about this condensed dopey readiness that we got going, but I'm still determined, I'm still hopeful, and I'm just really trying to take care of my body every step of the way. My PT absolutely recommended icing immediately after my runs, not waiting, because normally like I come back from my run, I do a cool down walk, I like drink my protein shake, I do my stretching, and I shower, and then I'll like sit down and do my icing. But I've noticed it actually works better if I ice immediately after the run, like immediately, because on the days that I was running, I didn't really have much pain like during the run or immediately following the run. It was later in the day, and especially if I did a little bit of like a lot more walking throughout the day, that my knees and legs were like, tapping out, you're done. And so I think icing right after has made a big difference, and not wearing the knee brace all day. And since I've had my knees taped, I haven't been wearing the knee brace. So I think that's a great thing, honestly, because I'm working on strengthening all of the things, all the muscles, all of the buddies, and trying to build up that knee strength again. So I think that tape is working wonders, and the icing is also working wonders. So feeling all right. But yeah, I can't say I'm feeling great, but we'll get there. Moving on to my questions. I just grabbed a couple of them because some of them I have discussed in past podcast episodes, and I think I was going to save a couple of them for future podcast episodes. So I asked on my Instagram story at Annika's Paintbrush, what did you want to hear, or what kind of questions you had, and a ton of you commented that you really wanted the knee update, so I'm so I'm happy that you care, and definitely I'm not afraid to hold back any details. So I love oversharing, which is why I have the podcast. All right, but the first question was, how has recovery been / getting back into training after an injury? I got a few questions kind of along the lines of that. So to sum it up, hard. All caps. Hard. I have lost all sense of routine. Like I still have been strength training, like upper body and core, and trying to walk, and still trying to keep a little bit of the routine, but it's not the same when you don't have like your dedicated running days and like you're consistently getting up early. So it's been a lot of sleeping in, which I have taken advantage of and has been great. And it was honestly a good rest period, because it's really easy to get burnt out, especially during these months of hard dopey training. So it was a good break, a forced break, a break against my will, but it was a break indeed. Lots of sleeping in. I've lost all stamina. It feels like I've lost all lung capacity. which these are all really negative, but it's like, it's truthfully just how I've been feeling. Like, it's been incredibly hard getting back into it because knowing how I felt and knowing where I was in my training before this injury, it's so hard to not compare myself to that point in time because I was so in shape and at the top of my game and so ready for the continued season of training. And to have this happen and just completely stop my training cold turkey, the worst. So yeah, I know it's not all gone. Like, my fitness isn't entirely down the drain, and I'm just gonna pretend that lifetime miles matter. And but it just sucked knowing that I worked so hard to get to where I was and then having to completely drop it. So I'm taking things incredibly slow because I don't want to rush back into it, and I don't want to make things worse, and I don't want to knock Dopey off the table. It's definitely been a physical and a mental game, and it's just gonna take time. So I'm at peace with where I'm at, and it is what it is. So trying my best out here. The other question I was going to include in here was, what is my favorite alternative workout to running? And like, I'm assuming that also entails like, what did I do in place of running while being injured? Well, if I hadn't had this exact particular injury with my knees, I would have definitely been Pelotoning. I do have the bike, and I have the Bike Plus, so I have like the screen and everything. So then I also get it on my phone too. But I know plenty of people that have not Peloton branded bikes, and they just have the app and they put their phone or their iPad or whatever, and just use the Peloton classes. So that's definitely something that I would have been doing, as well as aqua jogging and or swimming. I have just like a community pool too that I tried some aqua jogging in, and didn't work. Just walking in general, walking miles is still great. But with these 3 kinds of exercises, I couldn't even do those because just with my type of injury, any type of bending hurt and was a no-go. So if you have to bend your knee to do it, it was a no. It was an absolute no. So that was rough because the alternatives that like I thought I could still do, I were completely off the table. So that just rough. Yoga and Pilates is still really good, and I kind of would modify things, especially early on when pain level was still really high for me. I would just modify things that if the instructor for the class that I was taking was bending their knee, I would not be. So it just took some modifications. I still am doing strength training, a lot of upper body focused, and I'm thinking I can return to some full body and like some leg focused strength training again, and definitely mobility. Mobility is fantastic. Mobility work on the whole body, truthfully. You just can't go wrong with it. That is it for the questions that I'm including in this episode. Moving on to my final segment, we've got by the numbers countdowns from the posting date, which is November 22nd. And these are for my registered Run Disney races. I guess I could add my 5K. I don't know. That's like 1, 2. It's like 2.5 weeks away. So we've got that to look forward to. We've got Dopey, January 3rd. That is 1 month and 12 days away. We've got Dumbo the following weekend. That is 1 month and 20 days away. We've got Princess Challenge, February 22nd. That is 3 months away. That's exciting stuff. Pace update. I was able to get my jog to a comfortable like 12:40 pace, which is good on my runs. It's not like my overall pace because I am doing the run walk intervals, but I'm happy with that because I expected to stay in like the 13 to 14 range on my runs, taking it nice and slow and easy, getting back into it. And I surprised myself on one of my first run back because I made a killer playlist. It had like Hannah Montana on it. It had Cheetah Girls on it. It had High School Musical. It was like all the throwbacks, all the iconic pump up songs. And it was the perfect playlist for coming back, honestly. It made me so pumped up and happy. And the song Now or Never from High School Musical 3 came on. Yo, if you need a PR song, that is it. That one is it. I'm telling you. Because Now or Never came on and I was like, oh yeah. And it was like towards the end of my run. So I was like nice and warmed up and I had a nice rhythm going. And my pace like literally went down to 11:40. I was like, huh? Hello? All by accident. Just because I was like, yeah. Sing to me, Zach. Like... So that was fantastic. Highly recommend adding that song to your playlist. And as for total mileage, it's not 0. It's not 0. So I got in 6.61 miles last week. Woohoo! Which is really exciting. I'm excited that I have a mileage count again. And we're moving and grooving. This was from last week. So I did 3 30-minute runs, which I got like 2.2-ish miles out of. And I did 3-minute, 1-minute intervals in general. So yeah, feeling so happy about that. And I am back on the grind. Oh my gosh, getting up early again sucks. Like, oh, how I loved sleeping in. But it's all right. We've got no time to waste. So thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. Definitely come back to hear more about training when it's down to the wire. And thanks so much for listening. Get moving.